career diplomat Philip Rieker, the acting assistant secretary who pushed back on the, quote, fake narrative about the now former ambassador to Ukraine, who was unceremoniously removed from her job by the Trump administration. Josh Gerstein, what are we watching for in Ambassador Taylor's deposition this week? And of course, Josh Gerstein is Politico's senior affairs writer. Thank you very much for being here. What can we expect this week?
Well, Jonathan, I think what the House is going to be trying to figure out, and the members of this committee, the Intelligence Committee, are trying to figure out, is to find the consistencies and inconsistencies in the different accounts. You mentioned those text messages. They were basically traded among three officials. So you had Taylor, along with Kurt Volker and Gordon Sondland going back and forth, and it seems like Sondland's version, and he's the political appointee here, is the one most favorable to the president, although still not entirely favorable to him. And it seems like Taylor was the one who was most suspicious that there was a dirty political deal being done. And so you're going to have them trying to figure out what actually went down here, and did people say to each other verbally, perhaps, something that's a little bit different from what's actually recorded in the text.
Mm-hmm. Bill, in reading those names, I'm sort of reminded of all the other folks who have been called to testify and then are subpoenaed and have defied the subpoenas. I'm thinking now, apparently, the outgoing Energy Secretary, Rick Perry, was called to testify, and he announced, I think it was on Friday, that, well, I'm not going to abide by the subpoena. Why are these officials bucking that trend?
Well, I mean, that's an interesting question. They are from the State Department, so, you know,
they're current employees, correct?
They are current employees,
right.
That's true, but they're also career people, so they may feel that they have some degree of protection. It seems that the political people, like Rick Perry, obviously is a political appointee, although he's confirmed to his position. So there may be a sense that they're also more directly presidential advisors. But Gordon Sondland, of course, is a political appointee. He got his job basically by donating a lot of money to the Trump campaign or the Republican Party. So it's hard to see the distinction. But one thing to look for later in the week, Jonathan, is there are a couple of NSC, National Security Council officials that are on the list to be interviewed this week as well. And the NSC is the White House. It's part of the White House. It's right there in the West Wing and in the Eisenhower Executive Office building. And so I'll be looking to see, do those people also take that same approach and go in and give their testimony despite basically a direct marching order from the president not to do that? That would be
Josh,
a rather amazing rebuke.
I just want to make sure I heard you that you said what you said. Members of the NSC, the National Security Council, are going to the Hill this week to testify in the impeachment inquiry.
Well, they're on the list. I mean, we'll see.
On the list.
In the Trump administration, I wouldn't say anything will happen until it actually does happen. But
right.
They're on the list, and they're either going to have to make a decision to abide by the subpoenas or to abide by that letter. I mean, folks seem to have forgotten this very confrontational letter that the White House counsel, Pat Cipollone, sent, about 2 weeks ago now, saying that there would be no cooperation and promising a stonewall. And the stonewall has proved to be, fairly porous at this point.
Let me bring in the attorney here, A. Scott Bolden. You wanted to jump in a second ago.
I did, Josh. It seems to me that the NSA officials and the diplomats are being put in the position to either make a political decision or a legal decision as to whether to show up. And obviously, their lawyers certainly are going to tell them to show up, because ignoring the subpoena and notwithstanding the White House is going to be a big problem for them. You think they're struggling with that, those who show up and those that don't?
Yeah, I think they definitely are struggling with it. I'm sure many of them have personal counsel advising them. But normally in a situation like this, folks are just advised. I mean, the NSC people would be advised by the White House counsel's office, who are the head of that office is the one who said there'd be no cooperation. So you might get kind of weird legal advice from that person. And therefore, I think any of these folks would be probably well advised to get their own private attorney to advise them on what to do here.
But Josh, they'd be given, the lawyers would be giving them political advice, not legal advice from the White House.
Potentially. I mean, that'd be my concern. concern if I was in their position, and I'd want sort of an independent call. And now another question will be, will any of these people face any kind of sanction for having gone against what the president or his counsel said to do here? And I guess they're rolling the dice and saying that in the end of the day, they don't think they really will, that there's really no bite behind the president's, very florid letters that he sends up to Capitol Hill.
Francesca, real quickly.
Oh, I just wanted to say, Josh, correct me if I'm wrong here, but Bill Taylor seems to be in a different category than, say, a Gordon Sondland, because Sondland, as you said, was given the job because he was a big Trump donor, but Bill Taylor is really a career diplomat who had served previously as the ambassador to Ukraine, so not necessarily someone who's going to go in there and toe the line for Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to think he would. And remember, as I said in those text messages, he's the one who sounds most suspicious and most concerned about what he views as a political deal here. I think these people are long-term career folks who, are probably towards the end of their career already. And I just really be surprised that they're going to take any marching orders from the White House. But that's still an extraordinary event to have them publicly defying the president of the United States by showing up on Capitol Hill to testify, regardless of what they say.
Josh.